everybody knows who you are. You're the go to Pinnacle. And to kick things off, one thing that we were talking about this morning in our office morning huddle that I think would be good to talk about now and just go with everybody is operating your business from a place of abundance, not scarcity. Because coming into this bit, like a lot of us, were in opportunities where, we weren't business owners. We were just a regular employee getting a salary, maybe just a commission sales job. But this is a business and it has business expenses. And when you come into this and you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna just put a little bit into leads and see how it works out. Or I'm gonna skip buying leads this week, or what if it doesn't work out? Or oh, I just got to charge back. My life is over. I don't know what I'm gonna do, or whatever the case. Like we've all been in that position where a lot of you guys have heard my story, dude. I went through three lead batches and I spent $3,000 on leads before I was even make my first sale, let alone break even or be in the green. And so, it's really just taught, it's so important when you're brand new that a lot of people have personal debt coming into this, but the biggest debt we have is our ignorance debt. And the goal is to get that paid down as quickly as possible. And with this business, it's the hardest it's ever going to be is first starting out. Where me and Gabe, we come from captive companies. Like I came from a captive health insurance company where I was at a much lower comp and our leads were provided and given to us. And when you're in that type of model, you don't have a lot of control over what's going on because well, I'll tell you guys for me personally, and then I'll let Gabe, share his story. But dude, I was, we weren't given many leads a week, and I was the hardest worker on the team, and I was putting in the most effort, and they gave me the most leads out of anybody else because I was their favorite, just because I was putting in the most work. But I still wasn't able to get enough leads, and then Wednesday, Thursday would roll around, and I had already worked the crap out of my leads, and I was like, and then I was like, all right, well, what do I do now? They're like, all right, we'll go sell to your friends and family, or go cold knock doors. And so coming into this, I was genuinely stoked that we had the ability to have full control and full leverage over our lead flow because lead flow equals cash flow. And if you want to make more sales, you simply buy more leads. So, Gabe, talk to us about operating your business from a place of abundance, not scarcity.
Absolutely. I mean, first off, honored to be on with you guys. I always get accused that Prosper is my favorite. They're like, "Oh, like, Prosper is your favorite." Da, 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 da. And I always have to be careful how I
And
answer
it's
that
true.
question. I was like, well, I have favorites, but I love this group a ton. I mean, let me just give you guys some perspective a little bit that maybe some of you share with me and some of you don't have. I was in direct sales for 10 years before I ever got into insurance. I started selling newspapers door to door in Chicagoland. That's where I met Joe. And dude, during the 10, I did a bunch of different things. I did cable, I did sold garbage cans, I sold energy, all these different things. Every time I would kind of upgrade to a different job, all throughout those 10 years, I got approached, Jonah, dude, I don't know, a dozen times. I got the course for the insurance license sent to me at least six times where I like kind of agreed to it. Bet I'll explain it later. It's actually crazy. I made a lot of money selling garbage cans, a lot for a college student. But I got approached like all these different times, and the captive like model, it just never made sense to me. And then when I finally got in it, Joan, I actually got approached by two places. I got approached by IMO, and then I got approached by a local, also captive company that an office in Schaumburg, or office um, in Valparaiso, Indiana. If you guys, some of you guys know where that is. And I was like, okay. They're like, yeah, we give you leads. You're going to be making this much money. And I worked there for 6 months. I mean, the leads that they gave us were crap. I mean, Jonah, you know that experience. And I got into the IMO space. My second week, I wrote 7K. So my biggest week ever as a captive agent was 8 grand. And I actually got discouraged at the end of that week because I was like, dude, the stars basically had to align for me to make this much money here. I mean, after my comp and everything, I probably got paid out around four, like in total. And I was like, dude, how am I going to repeat this? I was like, 'cause so many things had to happen. And then my second week in the IMO model, I sold seven and I got a much bigger advance on that seven than I did on the eight. And then I was like, holy crap. I was like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life because I saw myself I'd never had a sales job before where I saw the potential for what this could be. It was the first time I ever brought my friends into anything. It was I called up all my friends, Sean Barnes, Mindy, Joe. You guys know the story. I just called up everybody. I was like, "You got to do this with me because there's nothing out there like this." And dude, even when I got discouraged, I don't know how many of you guys were on the morning call today. We had Storm. That's definitely one to watch if you didn't see it. He wrote 600K last year. And we share a story, which was Jonah, our first 5K sale chargeback, which I was probably having 20K months at the time. So 5K was a big sale. I remember just like laying on the floor of my little storefront office, just like, oh my God, like
Curled up in a
five,
ball.
yeah, dude. Like I had like a assistant at the time. I didn't really need an assistant back then, but I'm like, I'm a business owner. I need an assistant. And I had like someone came in like to talk to me. They're like, oh, can I talk to Gabe? And she just like peeked in the office. I'm there laying on the floor. And she's like, he'll talk to you. He's busy right now. And then I just remember I made a decision. I'm like, well, they already paid me this money. I was like, I know what I can do if I have leads. And I put all that money into leads and I had my biggest month ever at coming off of that failure. So, dude, this is one of those industries where I've never seen where you can be broke on Monday and be, flush by Wednesday, Thursday. But then on top of that, how if you just keep throwing in investing in yourself. Dude, I'm going to be very transparent with people on this call. The year that I hit President's Club, I hit it as an individual producer. I also hit it as an agency. We ended up just by the skin of our teeth doing 10 million that year as an agency. Dramatic growth from 300,000 a month to 1.6 million a month. And I remember one month in particular, dude, it just sucked. Like I got hit by chargebacks. I spent extra on leads and just between the growth of like the agency and the demand of my time, I looked at my numbers the end of that month and dude, I wrote 35, but I lost $700. That had never happened to me before. And it was just like chargebacks from other, like it was just the month from hell. And I remember looking at that and I was just like, how did this happen? And I just reassessed everything. And the next 3 months in a row, I profited over 30 grand every month because I was like, let me just change this. But this is just one of those industries where you just make a couple corrections, you just keep investing in yourself, and dude, like it just pays back dividends again and again. So the biggest mistake, I'll stop and I'll let you talk here, Jonah. The biggest mistake I think I made in my career was limiting working from that poverty mindset, which, dude, I grew up poor. Like I grew up with very little. We lived off like 5 grand a year. We lived off like welfare. And so my mom was sick a lot of my young life with cancer like 3 times. And it was so scary for me to invest in myself. And I think that came from a few different places, my experience, a lack of self-belief. And then when I finally broke through that and investing in myself, dude, I remember the day, John. It was my first 10K day. Like I cried driving on my way home because I had dialed for one, my first 10K day was a dial day. I dialed until 2 because I had all fresh leads. No, I dialed until 11 because that was when our meeting was back then. And then I was booked up for the next 2 days. And I still had all these leads. So I was like, let me do same days. And so I dialed till 2 same days. I was in Hammond, Indiana. I worked Will County, Cook County. So I booked up 7 appointments for that day. So like I went from my that appointment, I wrote 3 sales that day. I wrote 2 individuals and then a his and hers for like 6 grand, which is on the books to this day. They're great clients, business owners, couple. And I remember driving home thinking about how just a little over a year before I was dialing 8 to 8 and I was having like 15K months. And I was just like, holy crap, how quick things can change. Cause like I wasn't done after that dial day, like I had been so many times before, 8 to 8, just like blitzed. And I was just, dude, I was on top of the world. And I was thinking about that version of Gabe that him and his mom lived off 5 grand a year and how much I had struggled knocking doors all that time, how I was trying to find my place and made it to this industry and just what was possible. So yeah, dude, I mean, don't limit yourself. Don't operate from a poverty mindset. You're only stealing from yourself.
Mm, that's good. Gabe, let me ask you, was that you said the first 5K sale you made charged back? Was that the same sale where you were running down the street on FaceTime with Sean and Mindy and everybody like, I just made $5,000? That story
That
you share?
that was it. No, that was it. That one. That was it. That one. I think I was more excited
Man,
about
that would have
that
been
one.
a
That was
real bummer if it had been the same one.
it wasn't the same one. It wasn't the same one. I think I knew when I made that first 5K sale. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, Jonah. It wasn't like too big of a surprise that it had charged back. It was one of those, it was a final expense sale where the guy had agreed to $400 a month. And, a week later, he was like, yeah, I was thinking about this. This just didn't make sense. So I learned a lot from that sale. And no, the one you're talking about was a guy here in the north side of Chicago. That one's actually still on the books.
Nice. Let's go. Okay. So again, talk to us about that switch of because you said you did used to have that scarcity mindset, that was maybe instilled into you, whether it was growing up or your childhood or whatever the case may be. So I don't know if you remember, but the specific moment, but talk to us about that flip in your mind where you're like, all right, I'm gonna take this thing to the next level and I'm gonna get really serious.
Dude, I remember exactly the moment. So I'm going to say the name here because nobody is on here that would know him. I don't know. Nobody is. So when the first original crew that I had, there was one guy that I didn't recruit that a friend of mine recruited. I'm not going to lie. Me and this guy did not get along. And we just butted heads kind of constantly. I thought he was kind of lazy. We just didn't click as people. And I had been working second chance leads for like 6 months, and I was in that stage where I was like, I basically bought 100, around 100 for they were $4 a piece. I would get between 1 and 3 years, and I would get 100 Monday and I'd get 100 Thursday. Like rarely did I spend more than 1,000 a week. It was always like between 800 and 1,000, and I kind of got like in a weird way proud of that because I'm like, let me see how profitable I can get on as little lead spend. Like, and if there was a place where I could cut some corners, maybe even get some older leads that were a little bit cheaper, dude, I would do stupid stuff to save like $100 on like my lead spend. And I got to the place where I was consistently writing between 5 and 10K on that lead spend, like, a week. So like I got to like, I was doing okay. I had bought some in southern Indiana, Wayne County. I still remember the name of the county. It was like a 3 hour drive right on the edge between Ohio and Indiana. I dialed all day. The leads sucked. Like I dialed 8 to 8, and I only was able to book like 10 appointments for the next 2 days. So I'm actually pretty nervous. So I'm driving 3.5 hours out there. It was this little, like, kind of podunk town, and I was door knocking, like kind of in between, and then I eked out like 4,500 AP. And so I'm driving back, and I worked really hard for that, more 3 hour drive back. And this guy that I didn't get along with, I didn't particularly like, dude, he had just written 11,000 in the same 2 days. And it made me so mad, dude, because like I know you guys know I'm a pretty competitive person. And I'm like, I can't believe this guy beat me. And I thought about it for like an hour and a half. I was getting more and more upset. And so I called him. I was like, I need to figure out, like, swallow my pride here, figure out how this guy beat me. And so I call him like, hey, bro, dude, pressure 2 days. Dude, what did you do to write 11K? Come to find out, He had not even worked a full 3 days. Like I did dial day. He basically dialed, also had gone out like the same day that he had dialed, wrote a couple policies the next day, and had pretty easily, he didn't drive 3.5 hours away. He drove an hour away, to a county in Illinois. We're in Northwest Indiana, so it wasn't too far. And he had just spent, and when I broke it down, how much he had worked, what he had done, dude, he had just spent like $1,200 more on leads than me. He had just got fresh, higher quality leads. And I remember hanging up the phone and just being like, dude, this is the last time this is going to happen. Like, I'm working twice as hard. And even though he spent more on leads, like, and maybe like the ROI is like, he made way more money than me. He just made a lot more money than me. So I don't know what I'm doing trying to save a couple $100 like on doing this. I just got so mad at myself. And it was from that day. So dude, I would love to say it was like, this came from a place of like deep inner belief. And I was like, I do believe myself, dude. It came from like, this guy cannot beat me. That's exactly where it came from. Just that sense. And then I'm grateful for it though. I'm grateful to him for putting me in my place in that situation, because he showed me that I had a poverty mindset and he didn't. He was winning. So that changed me.
Eh, that's okay. Sometimes it takes somebody just to kick you in the butt and get a little pissed off. So nothing wrong with that.
That's what it was.
Gabe, let me ask you this. This is a more personal question, but on that same vein, what was that flip that you switched from? Because coming into this, you could have produced and made a great income, lived a great lifestyle, 6 figures a year. But what was like that switch that made you want to build something massive and create Pinnacle as the company it is today? Because one thing I really respect about you is I think it's pretty clear and pretty apparent to everybody, like you're not really money motivated. Like we don't see your Benz or your Bentley parked out front. Like, you drive a Honda Civic, like you live a modest life, and like you truly have a heart to help and serve people, which is something really beautiful. So talk to us about like the vision and like what's made you work as hard as you've worked the past however many years you've been doing this to build what Pinnacle is today.
I really appreciate those words. And hey, nobody hate on my Honda. I made a lot of money in that car. So that
Cars
was
with
my
cash
first
money.
splurge. Yeah, that was my first splurge when I became an age. I needed a new car, so I got a Honda. Dude, I actually it's two things. I remember what those were too. I'm gonna be very honest with everyone coming in here. Although I wanted, and I'm getting some feedback from Austin, might want to mute out. I came in, I knew I wanted to do the orphanage. It was like a big thing that was tough. But I'm not going to lie, when I came in and started selling and then building, my first real instinct, like, is like, I was just like, oh, I saw how much money there was in building. And I was like, why wouldn't I do that? I was like, everybody should, like, insurance is the best thing I ever sold. Everyone should be selling insurance. Why wouldn't they sell it with their best buddy Gabe? Like, so like that was the first thing. Two things happened though that really changed me. The first thing, even though the orphanage happened that first year, I didn't get to see it until the second year. I didn't get to go there. The first thing that would happen, shout out to my friend Sean Barnes. We met each other in college, friends for 15 years at this point. He came in very part-time. He already was an assistant pastor at his church, was doing pest control on the side, came into insurance, really up and down, kind of struggled. Around September of the first year I came in, he called me just like, dude, I'm not doing well at pest. I'm not doing well in insurance. He just had his second kid. He's like, my family is stressed. He's like, what should I do? And I was like, dude, I think you should quit. I think you should. I was like, insurance is still going to be here. I still think I'm going to do it. Like, I just want you to be happy. Like, I'll still be here. Like, I'd helped him out with some leads. He's like, I feel like I owe you. I was like, bro, you don't owe me anything. Do what's best for your family. He called me back a week later and he's like, I talked with my wife. I'm quitting the pest control job. I'm going full in on insurance. I was like, that's not what I said to do. That's not what I told you to do. But he went all in, dude, January. So just 4 months later, he called me again. And he's like, dude, he's like, I gotta thank you. I was like, what do you gotta thank me for? He's like, I just walked
Maggie,
into
did
the
you put your
bank
clothes away yet?
and
Hey,
let me mute
Claudia,
that.
can you mute Austin? I'm no longer host.
Run.
Yeah. He's like, dude, I just walked into the bank and I this paid off all my debt, which, he's at a young family. They had around $25,000, I think it was, in debt, which was one of the reasons his family was so stressed. Him and his wife were so stressed. There's a lot of debt. And he's like, dude, I just paid it all off. And I mean, he's like choking up over the phone. And he's like, dude, this has just been life changing. Thank you so much. And I think for the first time, Jonah, even though you could say the thing with the orphanage was selfless, it was my dream. And that's all I was really kind of concerned about at that point in the business. And it was the first time I realized this business wasn't an opportunity for me to reach my dreams, but like this was a vehicle for other people to achieve the things that they dream of. And now Sean, I mean, he's essentially a full-time youth pastor, still has this business, still crushes it. Finance obviously is not a lot of money in being a youth pastor, in case you guys didn't know. So this is what really feeds his family. And then the second, so that was the first thing. That was like it just changed. It changed. I remember getting off that phone call and just feeling different. It changed something in me. I just saw the light. I'm like, dude, this is going to change a lot of people's lives. This is really going to change a lot of people's lives. So it was that. And then later that second year, I took a group of friends. Ryan Koski went, Adrian went, a lot of my friends, and we saw the first orphanage. And I got to see, I think at that time it was right around 40 kids that were living there. I got to hear their stories, see the change. And then it was like, dude, and that changed what I felt like I was capable of. Like I felt like I got away from that kid who only knew poverty, who only knew struggle, who had, been in sales door to door. Is a hard way to make money, and had just been and I was like, dude, what I'm capable of doing is big. So it was the marriage of those two things, Jonah, seeing that this was a vehicle for everyone in it to achieve their dreams. And then thinking on it. Joe told me the first time that we talked about insurance, he's like, we should do our own. And I was like, that's crazy. I was like, I was like, I don't even know how you would do that. He's like, no, dude, I think we should. I think we could. And I think it was events like that that just grew what I believed we were capable of. So those two things.
Let's go. That's beautiful. Let's transition more into the tactical side of things. So, what were some mistakes that you made in the beginning, or some tweaks or adjustments that you had to make in your sales process that allowed you to start closing at a higher clip?
Dude, the very first thing I said, we already touched on it, was how much I was putting into leads. When I think about how I stifled my lead flow, because when you talk about your sales process getting better, I think everybody on this call understands you being on the phone for 12 hours a day does not make you a better salesperson. Like you just sitting there and hearing the phone ring, and having someone answer and having like a 3-second conversation doesn't really make you better. What makes you better is more presentations. And the only way you have more presentations is if you have more leads. So if I could go back and change one thing, it would be having to start like Caleb Combs. Caleb Combs' first year put 150 grand into leads and wrote, he hit President's Club. And then the next year he spent half as much money and wrote 200,000 more in premium that he had the year previous. Where he got that skill set is he just gave himself so many opportunities. And when I look at the beginning of my sales career and like what I did right and wrong, I think my application to making my sales process as good as possible, I think that was on point. Dude, I would listen to 4 or 5 hours of training a day. I'd listen to podcasts, top producers. I'd reach out. Like if there were 25 top producers on this call, you guys would all get a DM from me on like social media or Discord. I'd be like, dude, Derek, that was a freaking crazy week, dude. I'm a brand new, you got 5 minutes, that I could just pick your brain. I would do that stuff all the time. So I had that stuff right. But dude, you put me up against a guy like Combs. I don't even say yourself, Jonah, because you invested a lot in leads. And it was like, dude, I'm working off half as many opportunities. So even if I'm a little bit better, you're still beating me because I'm not giving myself as many opportunities. So that was the biggest one. If I could go back and change, I would have put so much more into leads. It would have helped me get better so much quicker. That's number one. If I had to say one in the actual sales process is, dude, I just wasn't asking enough questions for the longest time. I just wasn't. Like if I'm thinking about me day one and me a year from now, I probably asked 3 to 4 times as many questions. Like the client, I knew my client's situation so thoroughly, and they knew that I knew their situation so thoroughly because of all the questions. Like I knew everything about their health. I knew everything about, dude, not just what their family situation was now, what savings they had, what insurance they had. I knew what their retirement plans were, what plans they had with that home, whether they wanted to invest later, or whether they were banking on a social security, a pension program to help them through retirement. If they were concerned about retirement, what they wanted the kids to do, if they were going to plan on paying for their kids to go to college and helping them out with that. Like I was just asking so many more questions when I got good. And I don't know what that mental block was. I think if you had asked me in that first year, I think I would have told you that I was doing all the right things and like, oh yeah, I asked all the right questions. And I think it was again seeing people pass me by and having those conversations and just realizing, oh, Jonah asked a lot more questions than me. He really gets a lot more information out of the client. And I just had to hit my head against that wall enough times before I changed.
Mm, gotcha. Well, okay. On that same vein, what are the most common mistakes that you see new agents coming into this business make?
The most common, I think number one is schedule. That's got to be the number one, which is ironic because I'm doing a President's Club panel with top producers. I ask them a few questions, just kind of getting the panel and everything together. I asked them what some of their biggest strengths were. Dude, every single one of them put schedule in the list of their biggest strengths. So it's like top producers get it. And what I mean when I say schedule is I think when I first started Jonah, I just wasn't very intentional with my time. Like I would be in the office 8 to 8. Like I put in the hours, but I wasn't intentional about everything I was doing. Too much time went to YouTube. Too much time, went to, you know, walking off a bad like situation. Like not like those things were bad in their entirety, but just too much time went to them. And it wasn't planned when I do them. Like too much of my schedule was up to how I felt that day. And when I got a very intentional schedule, like my hours were accounted for, I time boxed, like when I had to do a one-on-one with an agent, like before it would just be like, hey, someone would call me. I'm like, oh, it's time to talk for an hour to help, so and so through this issue. When that changed to like, hey, dude, I'm in the middle of, dialing or, doing this other thing. Let's schedule this time. And so now my hours were accounted for. I wasn't just being pulled by everything that came up. Oh, a client needs to change something by a policy. Let me just call the carrier now and sit on hold for an hour. Like, no, that was either being done by an assistant or I had a special time to do those things or started sending emails and being spending a half to be on the phone because I was just really averse to emails my first year. Don't ask me why, but I wouldn't send an email. I just would have to wait on the phone. Dumb. Like when those things changed, like I saw my performance change drastically. And that's a really common mistake that people make. And then lead spend, lead spend. People, you heard it was from Storm today on the morning call. He's like, yeah, my first year was horrible. I was spending like $200 to $400 a week on leads. He's like, yeah, it's like it's tough to be successful when you're stifling your opportunities.
Yeah. Would you say those are the two, not only for the most common mistakes new agents make, but those are the two biggest non-negotiables that allowed you to hit President's Club?
Without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. Dude, and just to emphasize that, there was a guy, I was a little bit further in my career, Um, and you keep getting reminded sometimes of the same lessons. And I was now working fresh leads. I was pretty consistently hitting between 40 and 50K issue paid. And I saw a kid that was like a few years younger than me. I knew it started right around the same time. And he was doing like 60, 70K every month. And that spirit of competition boiled back up. I'm like, how is this kid beating me? No way he's that much better than me. And so again, I was like, let me swallow my pride. Let me call out, reach this guy, just ask him. And this is what this guy said to me, dude. I'll never forget the way he said it. Because I'm like kind of giving him probing questions about the stuff and like, his in home and this and that. And then he's like, yeah, dude, he's like, I'm not very good on the phone. And he's like, I'm also not very good in the home, like in the presentation. And I'm like, okay. He's like, so I just give myself like so many opportunities that I just find the easy sales. And again, it came back to he was spending way more on leads than me at that point, and he was just running more appointments. That was it. Like there was no other answer to why he was writing 20, $30,000 a month more than me, other than those two things. And I think that just like reasserted kind of what I already knew, but just it helped me realize there was levels to that. And it didn't stop being an issue. Like, so I think that is a big part of every top producer.
Yeah, I gotta add to that because I know exactly who you're talking about. And that same person now drives a Porsche and has a second home in Hawaii. Just sells, just off solely off of his personal production. So he's not,
Mm-hmm.
not, not doing too bad. But Gabe, give us some because a lot of people on this call, their goal is to hit President's Club this year. So give us some more tangible tactical thing, some more tangible tactical tips that they can apply to their business to help get them there that much faster.
Absolutely. I would say, obviously, number one, I'm not going to hit enough on this call. Make sure, reach out to enough top producers, make sure your lead spend and your schedule is on point. Like those two things have got to be on point. Like you're not going to overcome the necessity for those two things. Outside of that, um,
Okay, let me
tangible
stop you there.
tact.
So what would you say to the agent that's like, all right, well, I'm spending 500 bucks a week on leads, but I'm getting a bunch of leads and I don't have time to get all through all my leads.
I mean, I think I'd really examine that statement. I mean, I'd be like, not having enough time to get through all those leads. I
Well,
mean,
Gabe, I'm buying Aria calling leads, so I'm just getting a lot.
how many
So
are you getting?
like 300, 400, 500.
300 or 400. Here's what I would say to that. I'd be like, well, so first off, you want to make sure that with the effort you're putting in, the juice is always worth the squeeze. And what I mean by that is you're probably working a whole lot more to work those 300 lower quality leads than other people are to work, 50 to 100 much higher quality. And so what I would start doing is one, I think sometimes when you're sitting down with that many quantity of leads, two, 300 of any type of leads, you're like working through the list and like it might take you like maybe you start at the first lead on Monday and then you talk to some people, so by the end of the you're like lead 90, and so you're like, oh, it took me until Wednesday to get through all my leads and then I'm going to call them again. I think it would be much more effective to take a group of those leads, like 50 to 100 max, and then just like pound the crap out of those super intentionally each day. Like call through them all, text them, call again, leave a voicemail, text them one more time, and then at the end of that day, be like, hey, I'm going to switch. Because if I couldn't get enough people to answer from those leads, like I want to sit down with fresh leads. I don't want to be redialing the same people that wouldn't answer again and again. And so I would start there. What people typically figure out when they do that is that they're not getting really that many contacts. Maybe they're, again, spending hours in the office, spending hours dialing. But if you're not getting that many contacts, you got to be like, okay, where am I going to make my money? Is it just the hours dialing the phone, or is it in actual presentations? Of course, it's presentations. So then I would be thinking about, okay, how can I bring up, my answer rate? Well, if you're doing everything right tactically, as far as making sure your numbers spam, you're putting in the right amount of dials, then it's like, okay, the quality of the lead is the only really thing you can do from there. And so you start bringing up the quality of leads. So instead of the goal being hours in the office, instead of it being dials, I would work towards a presentation goal. And so I always tell people, like, if you can do, starting off, at least 20 presentations, ideally, if you can get to everyone who's doing 30 presentations a week, Jonah, like, there's probably top producers that are consistently doing 10K a week that are not doing that many presentations. Probably a good chunk of people. So as a new agent who's just trying to learn and put their numbers in their favor, dude, if you can make that your goal, doing that many presentations, you'll naturally start going up on your lead spend and wanting a higher quality of lead, because you're like, I'm putting in the work, but I'm not getting enough people on the phone to make those presentations happen.
Yeah, that was a good answer. Yeah, if anybody that tells me that, I'm like, either A, you're not working hard enough, you're not making enough dials, or B, you're working the leads too hard, and you just simply need more fresh leads. But with all
Yeah,
that being
yeah.
said, let me ask you this, Gabe, because not only do we have a lot of people that want to hit President's Club on this goal, but we also have a lot of people that are looking to build a team and build a business as well. So how did you personally balance hitting President's Club while also simultaneously building an agency?
Yeah, I mean, it's, to be honest, doing telesales now, it's way easier. And I don't mean that to sound like, the grandpa who's like, I walked up, you know, through 15 feet of snow uphill both ways. Like, I don't want it to sound like that. Like, oh, it was way harder back in the day. But I mean, in all honesty, I mean, you remember, Jonah, I was in person. I was flying around the country to meet my agents. I would take someone with me every day in the field, but I could only have one person in that seat next to me. So if I had 4 run days in a week, I can only really have 4 people watch me do presentations. And so with telesales, like, I think people make it too complicated, because it's like, yeah, you want time for one-on-ones, you want time to give people that time box, that stuff. So have time that you're meeting with your people, and then have time where you're just dialing, running appointments, and anyone that wants to, your people, get on and they listen to you. Because if you're a top producer, if you're focusing on building, and I'd say you shouldn't like focus 100% on building until you're a decent producer, because what are you teaching people to do if you don't know how to produce, how to sell insurance? So, but if you're good at that, like, you get people on and they can listen to you. They can listen to you all day, and that's what we see from our fastest growing teams. It's their team is together on a live dial, and they're listening to their upline, call and close and run appointments. You can have 20 people plus, an infinite amount of people basically, do that in our space. And then from there, just time box that stuff. So what it might look like, it might be like, okay, from 8 to 12 today, I'm only calling for one call closes and running appointments. And then from 12 to 2, maybe I take my lunch for 30 minutes. I do a one-on-one from 12:30 to 1, going over a presentation, with a new agent. And then, that between 12:30 and 2, I'm back on running appointments. 2 to 6, and then maybe the last hour or two of the day, I'm having quicker, meetings with my agents. Hey, how'd the day go today? Like, give me the breakdown of the numbers. What do you feel like you're struggling with today? And then, just repeat that. I think where people get overwhelmed building, it kind of goes back to what I'm saying before. It's not being intentional about the schedule, because it's like, okay, I'm here. I need to make some sales. And then at 9, Jonah just got off a very frustrating, appointment that he feels like he should have closed and he didn't. And so he called me right away. Gabe, can you help me? Like, I just got off a really, rough one. I felt like I should have got it. da 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 da. And so I'm like, yeah, let's go through it right now. And I spend an hour, with you doing that. And I get back on, I got to switch kind of hats, mindsets again. Okay, back to dialing. And then, later someone calls me, hey, Gabe, I got this guy. I think he'd be really good at insurance. Can you talk to him? Oh, yeah, let me talk to him. And there goes 30, 40 minutes, right there. And then, so it feels overwhelming. And it's because you don't have a schedule. If you are more intentional with your time, you could fit everything in. And that's what you need to do. I see a question in the chat here.
And guys, we're going on 15 minutes. So we'll actually open it up for a Q&A. So after Gabe answers this one, any further questions you guys have, either drop them in the chat or unmute.
So this is a good question. What would you tell an agent who wants to build a team, a solid team, doesn't know how to effectively show the opportunity this business can't bring without sounding like you just trying to recruit them? Dude, this is a great question. And I think a lot of people, they do two things when it comes to recruiting. They overthink it and then they oversell it. And I'll explain what I mean. Here's what I mean when I say oversell. Let's say I'm meeting Marissa, and I'm like, I really feel like Marissa would be good at this. And so I go in and I'm talking about, selling. And I'm like, yeah, and then you can build a team, Marissa. And then, yeah, there are these equity companies that like want to buy the team. And so you could, build it up, you're making millions of dollars, and then you could sell it. Da, da, da. And it comes off so like MLM and like you're trying to sell this massive dream to somebody. Like, are those things all a possibility? Like, yeah, they are, but like trying to like hit people with all of that, it comes off like, like it's not a real opportunity sometimes. And then the overthinking it part, like, oh, I don't want them to think, like you said it there, like just trying to recruit them. Well, you are trying to recruit them. Like, so there's nothing wrong with it sounding that way. But here's exactly how I recruited 95% of my warm market. Let's say I'm calling Claudia. And like, so I'm like, hey, Claudia, I would get right to it. Like, hey, uh, you look like you're really killing it, doing True Green. Hey, the reason I'm calling you is, I've been doing sales for a while. I just got in insurance sales, which I know you're probably like, dude, how do you sell insurance? But like basically, I get these leads for people that are requesting insurance for their mortgages to pay off their home if somebody dies, their final expense, like to pay for their funeral. I get these leads, I sell them, and I get advance on what the client is going to pay for like the next 30 years. And last week, I spent $800 on leads. I wrote 6,000 in premium, and I'll do the math for you if you're interested to know it. But like, and I got advanced 3,500, and I might even show like a screenshot. Like I sell different companies like Mutual of Omaha, American Amicable. Like this is how it works. Reason I'm reaching out, I thought you would be really good at this. And if you thought you were interested, I'd like to just kind of explain more how it works. Like that's exactly how I would recruit people. I would be super honest about why I was trying to call them. I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm gonna go out to lunch and share a business opportunity, with you. I would just call people, tell them exactly what I did in the simplest terms possible. I buy leads, I sell folks insurance. This is how I get paid. And I would be like, I thought of you because you're a really good people person. Maybe they weren't sales. They're like, I just thought you were a really good people person. There's a lot of people that come in with no sales experience. I thought you might be good at this. And so I want to kind of just give you a rundown if you're interested. And people would be like, wow, you're making really good money. It's crazy, like how much you're making. I was like, well, I'll explain exactly how it gets paid. And like, this is, the industry. The cool thing about where we are, other places, like I'd be like, State Farm pays 15%. That's because those guys are employees, they're captive. I'm a broker, so I get a way bigger piece of everything that I sell. And so just kind of walking through people like that. And yeah, dude, I mean, that's how you do it. Don't overthink it. Tell people exactly what you do. And then deeper in the conversation, because I would get a lot of people in just off that. Like they didn't even think about, oh, building a business long term or, or building something you could sell. Like, I had those conversations with some people. Obviously, someone like Joe wanted to know all about those, wanted to know all about those things, a business owner. But the average person was just like, man, well, I'm selling, I'm working a lot to make 80, 90, 100 grand here. Sounds like I could make a whole lot more selling insurance. And I would just have a real honest, simple conversation about that. And dude, that's money.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything Gabe said is just, well, first of all, because it makes it weird in MLM if you beat around the bush. But if you just call them and you're simply just straight to the point, like, hey, dude, this is the reason I gave you a call. Think you kill it here. What are your thoughts? And then you're straight to the point, but also just ask a lot of questions. It's whoever asks the most questions wins. So just like when you're with the client, like, the more recruiting calls you guys are on, the more you guys will realize it's very similar to selling a client. Where if you just ask questions and figure out what's important to them, because like for example, you call somebody like Joe, well, dude, he's interested in okay, what's the scalability? What does building an agency look like? What's the exit plan? What are the intricacies of that? Versus you might call Chad, and Chad's like, bro, I just want to make six figures, work 50, 60 hours a week and, grind this out and then, spend time with my family after I've got a book of business built after 2 years or whatever the case may be. So yeah, when you're just straight to the point and then you just ask questions and present it like a no pressure opportunity. And then thirdly, on top of that, is a lot of people when they first start recruiting is they sell the dream and they recruit the wrong type of people. But when you have an open and honest conversation of not only saying the good, but also the bad, and just letting them know, like, hey, dude, this is my schedule. It's like we buy leads, it's my lead spend, it's what my profitability looks like. Um, First month is rough. It's gonna be hard, and you're probably not gonna make a ton of money, but 12 months in, that's you're really gonna be killing it. And then the profitability really starts, 90 days in, 6 months, whatever the case may be. After a few years, you got a big book of business built. You're doing some annual reviews, you got some renewal, and you laid out the full roadmap and then the pros and the cons. It's if you're afraid it's going to scare people away, they're probably not a good fit to begin with. And the right type of people are going to be much more attracted because now this seems like a much more legitimate opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything you said, I mean, hit on two really good points, which is, I don't know, ask the question, it says iPhone. But dude, the thing you really got to be concerned about too is you want to make sure you're bringing in the right person because if you don't, it's going to suck for them and it's going to suck for you. And yeah, just being very transparent. Like I remember like and some people will help you do it. Like I remember Mindy was like, tell me all the good, tell me all the bad. And I was like, well, the bad is, your chargebacks is a thing, which sucks. Like I just kind of told her my experience with that. So I was like, it's not a big deal, but it does suck. And you're going to work really hard. You're probably going to really suck at it at first. Just probably going to be really hard at the beginning. And then just if you set that expectation, I actually almost try to scare people away a little bit. Because if you set that expectation, what happens to a lot of people, they find that I oversold how hard it was. And then they're like, yeah, this is, not easy, but it's not nearly as hard as Gabe said.
Absolutely. What other questions we got?
Someone said, how do I be as tall as Turner? I don't know. I'm 5'9". I can't help you. Sorry.
Keep something a garbage can.
Dude, so don't hate on it too much. Where I was in Indiana, there's a lot of unincorporated areas. I grew up in the city, so I didn't even know. Some of you guys might be from the country. Like we have to buy your own garbage, electric, water. You have to pay for those individually. Like why we just paid the city. Dude, I got paid $40, $45 every garbage can, that garbage service that I set somebody up on. Dude, I would be swinging in college. I would be selling like 15 a day. So I was making like 500, $600 a day, which for me at the time, dude, I'd walk in there, look at the professors, like I make more than you. So I felt like I was rolling. Let's go, Dylan. That's awesome, bro.
Pinnacle
Dude,
quarter zips, they're available on the Pinnacle website. We got a new merch plug, right? Right, Gabe?
yeah, heck yeah, dude. Get the quarter zip. Yeah, we're gonna share that link here later this
Yeah,
week.
I was gonna say, I just realized it's not in the agent hub anymore, but I think we switched people who we use, right? Maybe that's why. Okay. I was gonna say, I go through
Yeah,
Go
that
get your
yeah.
pinnacle
every week
drip.
and I just realized that there actually is no merch page.
Ask what's an ideal schedule for a new agent? I mean, I would say, I mean, first off, you really want to give it, obviously, you don't get paid on hours, but I mean, you want to dedicate like a really strong, I would say Monday, like, unless you have like, a wife and kids, it's just not possible with some of the responsibilities. Try to give it a solid 8 to 8, Monday through Friday. Like, obviously, you're not going to be working those 14 hours straight. Like, you'll put some other things in there. But as far as like when you dialing, when you're running, lead, yeah, Joe said it, full day, solid day of blood, sweat, and tears. Let's go. And then, open to doing some, on the weekend. And like, some people react differently. I've had people who, they work through a month. I think like we had Storm. That dude works like Monday through Sunday, works a little bit every day. Some people get burnt out and need like a Saturday, but I'm not a fan of just going out. Like, don't go out and party, and drink and do that kind of stuff. Like, if you're gonna take like work a half Saturday and then be really intentional, like do training, like do something that enriches you, that recovers your body. Like, like be intentional about your rest too, because we all need rest. Everybody's a little different, but yeah, dude, full Monday through Friday, and then work directly with your mentor as far as intentionality on, leads, dials, like presentations, what that needs to be like for you specifically.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, one thing that we preface with every agent, I talk about on my Tuesday call is, hey, just for the next 90 days, can you go all out? Like, we're not saying work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for the next year, the next 2 years, but just simply the next 90 days, because that's going to help you more than anything else. Where this, like the team calls we do, the trainings we do, like these are all awesome and these are all great, but the most you're going to learn is simply by actually doing it and getting your teeth kicked in. And your first day is going to be rough, and you're probably going to question this, but that's okay. And everybody sucks when they first start. And then you fail, you make some mistakes, you tweak and adjust, you move forward, you progress, you learn, you go from there. And like what Gabe said, yeah, like if you got to take a Saturday, do something that's actively healthy and in giving your body rest, because rest is important. So also looking at your habits of like putting healthy food in your body, making sure you get good quality sleep. Like the people that say like, oh, like I sleep is for the week and I'll sleep when I'm dead and etc. Like that works for some people. But even when I was going super hard, working 12 hours a day, like, I made sure I was still getting rest, taking supplements, cooling off, like all these like little things, like when you cool off your room, make sure it's dark, like these little things, like those directly correlate to your business. So Atomic Habits by James Clear is a good book to read. And one thing that's actually helps us a lot just in performance is every Sunday, me and Claudia, we order sushi to our house and we not watch Netflix and we do absolutely nothing. And that's important too, because just like mentally checking out your brain and just having that Sunday reset where you don't have to worry about anything allows us to fully recharge up, come back into Monday hard, and put in the work.
Yeah, no,
So
100%. Intentional rest, important. Anybody else?
yeah, there's one more question. Joe mentioned queso Pinnacle did.
Oh, I didn't see
Oh,
that.
yeah,
I
awesome.
think Claudia, don't you go over that on the Wednesday call? You have like the breakdown of different people's like uh pickup, set, close. I saw you go over it the other day on the Friday call.
Yes, I do go over that on my Wednesday call. Whoever asked that in the chat, the accountability tracker is on the Pinnacle agent portal under life, under quick links. I include in there like numbers to shoot for, like don't drop below this, don't drop below this, don't drop below this. And I recently went into detail on the Friday call last week. So if you go through the Discord and find the recording, there was that as well. And I don't really know, we have a couple Austins. So if it's Austin in the office, please come to me. And if it's not Austin in the office, we can also have a side chat to elaborate a little bit.
Awesome. All right, Gabe, close out. Tell the
Guys,
people what they
really
need to hear.
appreciate you hopping on, dude. In summation, I mean, we talked a lot about limiting beliefs and like living in a poverty mindset. I would say something that's really important to me, and I do this daily, and people on here on Instagram knows they're like, okay, Gabe will go through a string of just like sending me the same inspirational post or like something that he shared on his story. Probably I'll get sick of it. I'll just send it to like 20 people. And I think meditation and listening to people that inspire you should be a daily activity. You know, some people like kind of hate on motivation. They're like, dude, discipline crushes motivation. And they're right. You need discipline. But, you know, motivation is something that is going to wear off, just like a shower wears off and you shower every day. You need to like motivate yourself like consistently. So I would say throw something in every day. Like, what was it? Teddy Roosevelt's The Man in the Arena. I probably listened to it 1,000 times. I was listening to it in the sauna yesterday. And like just constantly be challenging yourself to believe that you can do more and achieve more and focus more time on those thoughts than you do on all the reasons you feel like you can't do something. If you make a regular habit of that, I promise you will expand in what you can do. You will be shocked by how many idiots are really successful in life. And the only reason is because they just super believe in themselves. So I don't think you guys are idiots. So please believe in yourself.
Amen to that. What a great note to end on. Guys, let's make it a great week. God is good. Stay blessed.
God bless.